the Green Building Council. So it's basically a standard for environmentally friendly buildings. And as part of that standard, you can actually get a credit for education. And having my background in exhibit design and development, I saw a niche there to say, wait, we can educate folks about the green building, about the energy, about the water, about the food, about the transportation, all these elements. And then connected with John and said, let's build an exhibit that can tell the story of these buildings. And when we first started, there were very few people doing this, as opposed to other countries like Australia, where the education credit is a prerequisite. Here in America, it's an optional point. I think it should be a prerequisite myself, because I think it's fundamental to a green building. Anyway, so we developed that, and over the years we've done over a dozen of these things. But I wanted to backtrack and share a little bit about the history of this book. And that is that at heart I'm really an educator, and I do a lot of work with schools and universities, nonprofits and for-profits in facilitating the process of educating the workers and the visitors about sustainability. And about 5 years ago, actually more, in the year 1998, as part of a master's research project, I started looking at sustainability on the web. And I discovered that there were all these principles and people that were talking about sustainability, and then figured out, there's some themes that are around here. So out of that grew the book that's previous to this, which is called The Sustainability Revolution, in which I looked at the different sectors and what the principles are, what the underlying values of this global conversation that was happening was about. And then from that, the next logical step was to say, okay, now that we know sort of the values and the morals and the principles, who are the players, who are the individuals, what are the companies and the nonprofits that are doing this work? Because it's happening so much, so fast, that how can I create a map that would highlight this? Then grew this book out of it. So my intention here was really to look at the different sectors in green building, in green business, in all the municipalities and the work that they're doing, in the environmental groups, and see what kind of work they're doing. Highlight the individuals, what their passions are, how they overcame their barriers, and also at the end of each chapter I focus on what each of us can do individually. Because often these problems become so overwhelming that we say, well, what can I do about this stuff? What can I do about climate change? What can I do about how to green my business? So I give steps, simple things like a company like this, looking at the employees and saying, how are people getting to work here? What can they carpool? Looking at procurement in terms of food. How do we get food if there's a cafeteria? What kinds of things can we do in terms of the lighting, the energy, the water usage, all these things. Again, just to go back and say, these are the things that we could do that are not rocket science. But how do they happen? Well, they happen because co-workers get together over lunch and they start talking. And they say, well, maybe we could have PG&E do a lighting retrofit here. And they say, yeah, okay, well, let's talk to the supervisor. And then they get the supervisor involved. And before you know it, they get the support of the supervisor. And then they realize they do calculations of how much money they could save. And then they have a program going. This is happening nationwide. A lot of the interviews and the people that I'm talking to now are saying, well, people are so frustrated with this green stuff because it's all green wash, and how do we know the real green from the fake green? And I say, well, there's some filters out there. There's a lot of noise and a lot of confusion, but there's also some tools that can help really decipher what is true and what's not as real. Also, the companies, there are many companies that may tout that they're doing certain things before they're actually doing it, but there are other firms that are actually doing all this work and don't blab it to the planet, but eventually they get the PR because of what they've done. There's companies, for example, a coffee company in Boston, Massachusetts that I highlight in the book called Beans. And they're a fair trade, organic coffee company that does work in Central America. And they're a mission-based enterprise. So their mission is not just to get the best coffee at the best price for organic fair trade coffee, but they take their people back to Central America and they work with the local villagers. And what they've done is they've set up a whole health network where they've been helping the people in terms of the health care, in terms of employment. They have a cafe that they've set up there. So this is one company in Massachusetts that's doing all this work for these folks down in Central America. They also, because there's a lot of kids maimed because of landmines in the Civil War, they've set up a whole amputee recovery station there where they're helping medically all the kids there. That's just one example. I mean, that's extreme, but it's just to show what companies can do.